Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel for another video. I film these videos like a couple of times a year in which I update you on all the books I've read recently, and I've kind of left this longer than I should have done because I have so many books to talk to you about today. Get yourself comfy with a cuppa, get ready to hear about some really good and some not so good books. Of course, this will be entirely spoiler free as well. I'm just going to share with you some books I enjoyed and didn't enjoy. And I'm happy to announce that this video is kindly sponsored by Skillshare. As someone who absolutely loves learning and education, I think Skillshare is one of the best things on the internet. It's an online learning community with so many different lessons to explore. There's something for everyone, no matter what you're interested in learning or creating. It empowers you to achieve all your goals. This past week I've actually been watching the productivity masterclass, Create a Custom System That Works For You, by productivity expert and YouTuber Thomas Frank. I don't really do the whole like new year, new me thing, but I am a big advocate of new year, organise your entire life. And this class has been perfect for helping me get my life in order. This course has 10 classes which look at how to manage your tasks, set up your calendar, organise your digital and physical files, and get better at email and loads of other things as well. I particularly needed the latter. I'm terrible with my emails. Whether you're self-employed, a student, or just somebody who needs to get their life together a little bit, I really cannot recommend this course enough. It's just the perfect thing for the new year. Skillshare offers classes designed for real life, so you can learn around your own schedule, and it's also incredibly affordable, especially when compared to in-person classes and workshops. Skillshare is giving away 2 free months of premium memberships to help you explore your creativity. All you have to do is click the link in the description box below, and after that it's only $10 a month. I am genuinely such a huge advocate for Skillshare and everything they promote. But now what we're all here for, the books. I do a lot of reading on my Kindle. Last time I uploaded one of these videos, I think like at the beginning of summer, I got quite a lot of flack for my Kindle. People apparently are really against Kindles. I was for a long time, but I'm telling you now, getting this Kindle changed my life. And the first book is one that I read on my Kindle. It's called The Paramedics' Daughter by Alisons. I think I got it on Kindle Unlimited, which I pay for, so worth the money if you ask me. I read this book in June or July last year, so I was struggling to remember what it was about. So I'm not going to go into loads of details here because I can't really remember the details. But from what I can recall about the book, it's a psychological thriller about a paramedic called Abby, whose daughter Rose goes missing in Brighton, where she's at university. And as I've stated in other book videos I've done, psychological thriller / crime books are my favourite kind. I've read hundreds of them, but that makes me incredibly fussy. I've seen all the plot twists, I know all the endings. It really takes something special for me to be shocked by a psychological thriller book like this. But I must admit that The Paramedic's Daughter had an ending that I did not see coming at all. And I really liked the way it explored the kind of mother-daughter relationship and just relationships in general. I really enjoyed it. If you're the same as me and struggle with sort of the psychological thriller genre, then I would highly recommend it. I really enjoyed it. Good Samaritans by Will Carver. Shock horror, another psychological thriller. This book was actually recommended to me by a friend who knows the author of this book. I'd never heard of him before, Will Carver, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I can't really remember how this book ended. I remember bits, but not really the full picture, and I'm not sure what that says about the book as a whole. It's about a man called Seth who has this terrible insomnia, so he spends his nights calling random people in the phone book, just hoping to make a connection with them. And then he meets a woman who he just happened to call at the same time that she thought she was dialing the number for the Samaritans. And they do make that connection that he's hoping for. And I can't really say any more than that without spoiling it. It's quite dark, it's quite gruesome at points. The blurb describes the book as sexy, but I'm not sure I would agree with that at all. It's not a sexy book. It's definitely not one for the lighthearted. If you like a psychological thriller, then this is definitely worth a read. It's just not one that would be top of my recommendations list. That being said, Will Carver has written other books in the same genre that I do have on my Goodreads to read list, so I probably did enjoy it. Fallen by Fiona McReady, I'm not sure, but oh my god, this book. I remember I went to the spa for the day, I took my Kindle along and I devoured this book in one whole sitting. It is so beautifully written. The basic outline of the story is that it's about these two women who are sat on the same flight that just falls from the sky one day and everybody on the flight dies. But it's not really the story of these women, it's the story of their boyfriend and their husband, and it's kind of like these two separate stories are told parallel to each other. The chapters just switch between the perspectives of Tom and Angelo as they're coping with the loss of their partners. But as you can guess, the story slowly begins to like intertwine together. It's a really sad book. It's probably not the best read if you're feeling down, but I loved the structure of it, all the different perspectives, loads of flashbacks, and it's really hard for an author to write like that without making it confusing and hard to follow, but Fiona McCready really did do a great job making it effortless to read. I tend to find in books where there's like different timelines and different perspectives and flashbacks, you can get really confused really easily, and it's so hard for an author to write that way and still make it easy to follow, and somehow this is easy to follow. It's such a beautiful book. I really enjoyed it. Please go and read it. It's only got 9 reviews on Goodreads, so it's really not very well known at all. It's just such a hidden gem. If you read anything on this list, make it Fallen. Next up, I have these. One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus and Two Can Keep a Secret by Karen McManus. For full disclosure, both these books were part of a sponsorship I did back in the summer, but I'm including them in this video because I read them both and I really enjoyed them, and I think they're worth sharing with you once again. I describe them both as teen crime / mystery style books. They're definitely YA, but also sort of old enough for full adults to read and enjoy. I did anyway, although I must admit I am quite partial to a bit of YA. One of Us is Lying is described as The Breakfast Club meets Pretty Little Liars, and that really is the perfect description. It's 5 high school students who are in detention together, and then one of them suddenly and mysteriously dies, and investigators say it wasn't an accident. One of the people in the room had to have been responsible. It's just this classic murder mystery with a really modern twist to it. And then there's Two Can Keep a Secret, which I must admit I didn't enjoy quite as much as One of Us is Lying, but it was still a really good, enjoyable read. It's set in this picture-perfect town called Echo Ridge, and 2 teenagers, twins from California, have to move back to Echo Ridge to stay with their grandmother for a bit. Only there's homecoming queens being murdered on a semi-regular basis in Echo Ridge. I don't think there are actually any huge twists in this, and I'd actually say the subject matters are slightly more adult in this one, but I really enjoyed it. It's just a very easy mystery read. Karen McManus is actually releasing another book this month, actually might already be out when this video goes up, called One of Us is Next, and I will definitely be buying it, which I think says all about how much I enjoyed the first 2. I will be buying the 3rd one. The Sky is Everywhere by Jandy Nelson. Talking of YA, this book, The Sky is Everywhere, is classic YA, and I found it really difficult to read. It's about a girl called Lenny whose sister Bailey died suddenly from an undiagnosed heart condition, and it's just about Lenny's journey with grief, the guilt she feels about moving on and being happy when her sister, who was always like the better one, is suddenly dead. It's not the kind of book that you just devour in one sitting. I found some of it really difficult to read. Parts of it like genuinely really upset me. I haven't been that upset over a book since Dobby died. It's very raw, it's very teenage, it's very realistic, but Jandy Nelson's writing in this is almost poetic. It's really beautiful. Don't get me wrong, it's a really good book and I really liked the book. It just wasn't one that I could sit down and just read in one sitting, because it's really heartbreaking. Like, you feel like you're there, you feel all of the grief and the emotions that Lenny feels, and it was really difficult, and I wouldn't really consider myself to be a very emotional person. It has a lot of references in the book to poems and notes that Lenny writes to or about her sister, and she just sort of like leaves them lying around the town, and lots of the pages are just like this poem that Lenny wrote for her sister. I didn't really connect with that very well. I found myself not bothering to read them, but other than that, I really liked the book. Maybe it's not one for you if you're feeling particularly sensitive or if you're dealing with grief currently yourself, or maybe it'll help, I don't know. I cried a lot. The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. Okay, so you've probably heard about this book even if you haven't read it. It's heralded as being the best book of 2019, the new Gone Girl or the new Girl on the Train. but I didn't like going on the train, and I didn't like this book. Actually, I hated this book. I hated it. Maybe it all stems from my never-ending quest to find the best psychological thriller out there, and having read so many of them, I just found this book to be bland and predictable. It's about an alcoholic, agoraphobic woman called Anna who doesn't leave her home. One day she thinks she sees a murder happen in the house across the street from hers, and she makes it her mission to find out what happened. Honestly, I guessed the ending about halfway through the book and was just waiting for that ending to happen from that point onwards. Although I will admit there is one twist that I didn't quite see coming, so it does get a single point for that. That's the only thing I can say positively about this book. I think my main issue with this is the whole unlikable alcoholic female narrator trope. It's just so overdone at this point, and I don't understand why it keeps popping up time and time and time again. Oh, another book where it's an alcoholic female thinks she sees something, but oh no, that's not really what she saw. Shocking. Like, it's so overdone, and I feel like it's a bit of a cop-out for writers. And apparently people do really enjoy it because this is another best-selling book and everyone's saying it's the best book ever, but it sucks. And I take offence to people saying this is better than Gone Girl, which I personally think might be my favourite psychological thriller of all time. I said it. I think the book's amazing. I read the book before the hype, really enjoyed it then, still enjoy it. And I also think the movie is amazing, actually. Apparently they're making a movie of The Woman in the Window as well. A quick Google tells me that Amy Adams is playing Anna. I'll probably go and see it out of curiosity or just like a hate watch, but it really offends me that people are saying this is the best book of the year because I hated it so much. It's just such a cop-out. But on a more positive note, this book was bloody awesome. It's Saint X by Alexis Shaitkin. This is another murder mystery, but it has a difference to it. It doesn't read like a murder mystery, although the whole plot of the book is leading to a murder getting solved. Does that make sense? It's kind of like the mystery is the secondary plot in this book. It switches between flashbacks of what happened the night of teenager Alisons' murder and the present day where her younger sister Claire is still trying to come to terms with her older sister's death. And it talks a lot about how this has affected her for the last 20 years of her life. And then Claire suddenly stumbles across somebody from their past and she becomes obsessed with getting the answers she needs. This book is so well written. It's based on a fictional Caribbean island called Saint X and also in New York City, which creates a really interesting contrast in the narrative. And it also creates a really interesting narrative around race and class privileges. It talks about all these incredible 5-star resorts on these beautiful islands where the workers are living in poverty. It's very thought-provoking, but not too in your face. It just quietly raises the questions that leave you thinking after you put the book down. One thing I will say is that I found the dialogue in this to be kind of pretentious. Not to sound like an arsehole, but I'm very well read. Like, I love reading, and it's really rare that I come across a word that I don't know the definition of. But I felt like with this book, I was having to Google definitions way more often than I would have liked to. And I'm fine with that because I feel like I left the book smarter than when I started the book, but it's kind of annoying when you're in the flow of reading and then suddenly you see a word and you're like, I have no idea what that means, and then nothing makes sense, you don't know what that word means, so you've got to stop and you've got to Google it, and it just throws you right off track. So that's a bit annoying. It is quite pretentious, but it's a really good book. All in all, I would highly, highly recommend this. I loved it, although it is worth saying that my friend actually got this proof copy for me. She works in like books. So on the back here it says the UK publication date for this isn't until the 25th of June 2020. The international publication date is the 20th of February 2020. So if you're not in the UK, then you'll be able to get this next month. If you are in the UK, then you might struggle. But it could be one to put on your Goodreads list to remind you when June comes around, because I really recommend it. My Sister the Serial Killer by Oinken Braithwaite. You've heard of this book, right? Everyone's heard of this book by this point. This is so highly recommended, and for really good reason. It's a really clever story of two sisters, one of whom is a serial killer, as the title suggests. But this isn't a mystery at all. It's very dark, it's weirdly funny, and I think anyone who has like a close bond with their sister will feel this novel on like another level. How far would you go to protect your sister, even if she's a serial killer? I feel like there were a few references in the book I didn't quite get because it's set in Nigeria with a Nigerian family and customs, and clearly I am not Nigerian. But that didn't take away from my enjoyment of the book at all. I just think it will add to people's enjoyment if they are Nigerian and do kind of get that culture. Korede is the level-headed, sensible sister with a steady job as a nurse, just trying to get through life. So there's Korede, who is the level-headed, sensible sister with a steady job as a nurse, just trying to get through life. And then there's Ayula, who is this younger sister, beautiful, vibrant, charismatic, the life of the party, and kills every boyfriend she has, leaving her older sister to clean up her mess. It's a really short book. I read it in about 2 hours. Some of the chapters are only a page or two long. I think the book's about 200 pages long. And I think it's really impressive how the author managed to create such a rich story in so few pages. Like, I still think about it all the time now. I really enjoyed it. And I'm going to end this video on a high note with an amazing psychological thriller. I should have made this a drinking game. Take a shot every time I say the word psychological thriller. This is The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. This is a very modern twist on the whole murder mystery, cabin in the woods kind of deal. You know, the kind of thing you've read 100 times before. But Lucy Foley has somehow managed to make this a very fresh story. It centres around a group of friends who spend every single New Year together, this year travelling to an isolated lodge in the middle of the Scottish Highlands. And you've got the usual cast of characters. You've got the outcast, the couple, the vibrant, beautiful one, the forbidden love, the gamekeeper with the dark past, and more. And then suddenly one of them ends up dead, but they're trapped in a snowstorm, so the murderer has to be one of them. It's a very like typical story that you've heard a million times before, but I still really enjoyed it. Each chapter changes narrator, so you're hearing about sort of each character's perspective, something I did struggle with at first, but each character does have a very distinct voice, so you soon just automatically know which character is talking without having to like go back and check the title of the chapter. For the majority of the book, you know that a character's been murdered, like they introduced that pretty early on, but you don't know who it is that's been murdered. You don't know who the murderer is. It's really clever how it sort of slowly unravels the story and never giving too much away. I really couldn't put this book down. I read the bulk of it in one evening, which is always a good sign of a book, especially when the book is so chunky. And they're all the books I've read in the last few months. I've read a few non-fictions as well for videos, but honestly, I never really enjoy non-fiction in the same way that I enjoy fiction, especially when I'm reading them for video research. I don't really count that as like reading, I count it as work. I just love a fiction book that I can really escape into. Let me know down below what books are on your must-read list for 2020. I'm in the process of curating my to-read list on Goodreads, so I want all of the book recommendations. My goal is to read 25 books this year, which I think will be totally doable, hopefully. I've already read one book and we're on like the 4th of January, so I'm doing good. And I'm going to end this video here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please make sure you click subscribe down below. I'll probably do another books video in about 6 months, let you know where I'm at there. Make sure you check out Skillshare in the top line description down below. I love what Skillshare offer and I know you guys will do too. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you then. Bye guys.